It's not always about games, and it's not always good. Full frontal garbage.
Full breath.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of the Full Frontal Garbage podcast. I'm Jordan. This is David. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us if you're new. This, warning now, is a spoiler cast for the new and, dare I say, excellent.
the courageous. Jesus.
The courageous and awe-inspiring movie, innovative movie that is Monster Hunter.
Oh my god.
It's based on the video game starring Milla Jovovich, and my god, it is a travesty.
The video game starring Milla Jovovich. I wish she was in the games. Oh my god. That was it was incredible.
I'm going to preface this entire conversation we're about to have about this awful movie with, I love Milla Jovovich. I think she's a very good action movie actress. I've loved her ever since I saw her in The Fifth Element.
Good movie.
You know, even though people feel certain ways about it, I loved her in the Resident Evil series. You know, those movies aren't great. I get that, but they're fun to watch, and I think that's a trend that's followed through to this movie.
Oh my god.
So, enough of my rambling. David, what was your first thoughts on this movie now that we've watched it?
I need like 5 sequels. I need every year. I'm talking one a year. Just bang them out. Just keep throwing those hot turds on the fire. Just let them burn. And oh my god. In all reality, like it's the movie is. It's kind of hard to quantify how it makes you feel because you kind of don't really get a chance to settle in on anything. Like you get no time to breathe. The pacing is ridiculous. It's just like scene. Half the movie is like split cut montage stuff.
It is a breakneck pace. It really is. I will give them very good credits because we have our viewing of the movie will be uploaded to other places at a later date. I will let David announce that, but I will say this that I said in the movie: the costumes were excellent.
The costumes are really good. The
CG is really good.
Yeah,
actually, I was expecting
really good.
I was expecting like cartoon monsters, given like this has had no press, it has had no headlines. I literally didn't know this movie existed until I was literally walking through the store one day and I saw it on the shelf. It's like, oh, Milla Jovovich, Monster Hunter. I wonder if that's based on the game. Oh well, and I walked on. It wasn't until I talked to a coworker who was a friend of mine that had, let's say, not great things to say about this movie, but he bought it anyway to watch it because he's a huge fan of Monster Hunter.
Which explains his disdain for the movie.
Which explains, because I have only, I don't want to say I've played the games, but I have played or watched them over your shoulders enough to say that I've played the games enough that I get the premise, but I don't know any of the lore.
Yeah.
But honestly, through some terrible inconsistency and some of the thickest plot armor I've ever seen.
Jesus Christ.
10 out of 10 best movie ever.
But yeah, like Jordan said, this is going to be a spoiler heavy podcast because I intended to talk about the movie, but I was not prepared for what we were going to see. Oh my God. We are going to have to walk through that movie as close as memory can serve, step by step, because there's just so much about this movie. And it is It's dumb fun. If you don't know what Monster Hunter is,
if you don't know what Monster Hunter is, or if you're not into the Monster Hunter lore like I am, it's going to be a fairly enjoyable movie.
Well, it's still not a good, like I would say it's still not a great movie.
No, it's not an enjoyable movie because it's a good movie. It's an enjoyable movie because it's borderline slapstick humor at some points.
Yeah,
and it's completely unintentional.
It's dumb fun, but
it's dumb fun.
For me, it's definitely in the category of so bad it's good. It's just there's so like you just pop this movie in, watch it with some friends. If depending on the people you're watching it with, you're gonna have a blast because this movie is just it breaks its own logic. It never follows through with things. It does whatever the hell it wants to do. But we're gonna walk through this. So it starts out with it starts out in the Monster Hunter universe, and the way it works is you have the Monster Hunter universe, and then you have our Earth, like our world in the human. I don't want to say human.
It plays
universe.
on like an alternate dimension kind of thing.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna say you have Earth, and then you have Monster Hunter World. And it starts out in Monster Hunter World, and they're on this ship that's just barreling down, like just desert. It's just cruising through sand. And
it is 100% like Davy Jones' locker from Pirates of the Caribbean. They are just riding this boat like it's completely normal, just across sand dunes, right?
Yeah, and they get attacked by like if you've played the games or anything like that, or at least very familiar with it, then you're going to recognize these names that I'm going to drop. But I'm just going to cruise through it because knowing exactly what it is, it doesn't necessarily matter. Yeah. It's not important.
If anyone gets confused, please just go look up the wiki.
But
he knows a lot. We're just going to use the names for the creatures.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't. That's the thing. I'm not like 100% well versed in this, but I know a little bit. But they get attacked by 3 Diablos, which are just big, gigantic, like sand dune creatures. They just kind of like they barrel through the sand and burrow and all that. So the ship gets attacked by 3, mind you, at the same time. They're just knocking the ship back and forth, and just crazy hilarity ensues. And they're going along. One of the dudes who's going to be the character who hangs out with Mia Jovovich, Melia.
I don't know. There's an L in her name.
Yeah, the Joe. I'm going to call her the Joe. And he gets knocked off the ship, and just lands out back on, sand because it's just bare ground out there. That's what
I desperately wanted him to like struggle to stay afloat in the sand, though. I'm upset that it was just normal sand.
He's just in the sand still in like a life preserver, just and then spits up some sand while he's sitting there floating. But he's just like kind of knocked unconscious, but is like closing his fist as the ship barrels away. It's kind of weird. I don't know, but he's totally fine. Like everyone else on the ship is still getting just tossed back and forth between these Diablos, and he's just fine. So they keep going. Sure. They're heading towards this big monolith-looking thing with like stormy clouds up on top of it, and that's when it cuts. Monster Hunter, and then it goes to the soldiers.
In the modern world.
Yeah,
in our world.
The Joe and her crew, and they're just being movie soldiers.
Let's pull back for a minute because I want to talk about this.
Yep.
Because they are supposed to be this crack team of what I'm assuming is the army. And I've never been in the military, but I have family members that's been in the military in various branches. My significant other was in the military for years. There are some glaring inconsistencies, but most people aren't going to figure them out. But they are going along, and what we assume is just this patrol mission, or they're going from one area to another, trying to find for whatever reason, we don't know, but they're trying to get in contact with the team that went ahead of them. Well, while they're sitting there doing these communications, of course, they're bored out of their minds, all of a sudden the storm, which are like the darkest black clouds ever. And
yeah, and 100%
suddenly
looks like you're standing in the middle of a green screen setup.
Yeah, totally. And then like all of these pillars that they've been commenting on, which, let's be honest, if there's any kind of like big giant massive like Sumerian text covered pillars lining the roads, it's like that's going to be a historical site.
Yeah, I mean, actually, let me stop you right there, because that was something I was wanting to bring up. You mean to tell me that, because you find out that there's this ancient civilization in the Monster Hunter world that wasn't that what the most recent game was called? Monster Hunter World? It was. That's funny. Anyway,
yes.
You
the Monster Hunter universe.
Yeah, well, yeah. Monster Hunter universe. But you find out in the Monster Hunter universe later on in the movie that there was this ancient race that actually could go travel back and forth between the two dimensions freely. And then, of course, they got too cocky and their technology turned against them, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that place has been set up and works. Like,
yes.
Because it isn't really established. Was it established that it's just started happening? Or because they don't really talk about that.
Okay, to skip to the end of the movie real quick, when she's being recovered and the soldiers that recover her, I can see them as they know something's going on.
Well, I don't think so, because they were pretty spooked about, like, they weren't even prepared
for they weren't prepared for like the monsters and stuff like that, but like this group of soldiers that recover her seem to know something about the area.
I think that was just because you know what? Hold on. We're gonna get to that when we get to it, because there's a bunch. We'll get to that more in detail. But anyway, you assume that this area has had some kind of activity and wouldn't just be more sand dunes out in the middle of nowhere. So why are they just patrolling this area?
It's not like they're patrolling out in the middle of nowhere. They're on an established road.
Yeah, but anyway, so they're passing this stuff and it activates, and just the nauseating, crazy smash cut montage.
Yeah, if you're epileptic, do not watch this part of the movie, because when the lightning storm happens, it is literally hard cuts, flashing lights,
blackness flash.
Yes, it is awful for anyone with like light sensitivity, so be warned now.
So they wake up in more sand dunes, and then everybody takes turns asking the same question probably 30 times in 30 different ways. Like they literally ask the same "where are we, how did we get here" question like 30 different ways.
Yeah, there's like what, 6 or 8 of them.
Yeah,
there's like 6 or 8 soldiers, and they're all like,
wait, no,
where did we get here? I don't know, but how did we do it? I don't know what happened.
There's like 5
something. Yeah.
You have the main chick, the 2 dudes. Yeah, there's 5. There's 5. Yeah. But yeah, exactly. They're like, how did we get here? Wait a minute. Where are we? Why is there more sand? Hold on a second. Where did we?
Let's check this map. We're not anywhere on the map,
Yeah, and anyway, and so that just goes on. That goes on for like a solid minute and a half or something like that. And so they
longer than necessary.
Yeah, so they start moving forward, and they kind of get confused on what fire is for a second and how exactly it works. And then
let's reel back to that. They do come across the wreckage of their original.
I'm gonna let you talk for a second. I'm gonna grab me a drink.
Okay. They do come across the wreckage of their original team. And it's a burnt husk of the vehicles. It looks like a buggy of some kind and some kind of troop transport truck. They have no idea how something can burn this down and turn the surrounding sand into glass. Like, apparently in this universe, fire doesn't get hot enough when a fucking vehicle is burning to turn sand into glass. I don't know what universe they're actually from, but here, fire gets plenty hot enough to turn sand into glass if a vehicle is burning on top of it. But it's basically established at this point that whatever burned these vehicles burns hotter than a car fire, burns hotter than a house fire, theoretically, apparently burns hotter than thermite, and can instantly turn this impermeable sand into glass, like, immediately. It's like a thick enough layer to where, like, it can be picked up and handled. It's not a delicate layer. It's like a 1/4 inch thick, like, normal pane of glass thickness. And they just can't fathom, like, how this can be so hot to us burn this. Right.
Yeah.
So they're looking around, they're trying to find this, and I believe at this point, what do? Do they decide to start going towards Big Scary Pillar?
No, I don't think they're actually headed towards the pillar. I think they're just
they decide to, like,
they're just trying
they
to
decide
find...
to go, like, towards the ass end of the storm that brought them to this place or something.
Yeah.
Point is, they're going away from the direction we learn later they should be going.
This is a great part of the movie because it sets up a question that you're going to be asking yourself for the rest of the movie.
Why?
Because
they run into one of those creatures immediately after, don't they?
No, hold on. So
Okay.
they're driving along and they're just going and they stop and they see this gigantic rib cage. Well, the dude who got thrown from the ship is like however far off, just kind of, he's just been chilling this whole time wherever he is, and he's just watching them, right? So
he is apparently, though, within giant bow and arrow distance.
Yeah, he's within giant bow and arrow distance. He fires an arrow that strikes one of the ribs above them, and
yeah, because they're like
chalk.
parked inside the rib cage,
and it like explodes in like this red mist, and like chalk falls, right? So he's trying to warn them. So like he hits that, and he's like, "Hey, hey, hey!" And in their Monster Hunter
and of course,
language,
what do they immediately do?
And there is a Monster
not
Hunter
any
language.
kind of there is a Monster Hunter language.
There is a Monster Hunter language. So he's like, "Hey, hey, hey, hey,
but
hey, come over here."
At this point, we don't know that yet.
No, you do. He's literally waving them down. He's like, "Hey, come here. Hey, hey, hey."
Yeah.
And that's...
Oh, yeah, that's right. He is screaming in his language.
Yeah, he's screaming in his language, trying to get their attention, trying to say, "Hey, come here. You need to come here." And he's being all, sporadic about it and stuff like that because he knows what's about to happen. And then, like you were saying...
But yeah, instead of surveying the location or whatever, they immediately do what no fire team in the history of anything would ever do. They immediately open fire.
Like all barrels.
That's a court-martialing.
It's a battle.
So they immediately open fire, and she's like, "No, wait, it's chalk. Stop firing." But by that point, all this gunfire has alerted something that is just hauling ass at them underneath the sand. Lo and behold, it's the fucking monster that was attacking the Diablos that was attacking the ship earlier in the movie.
But it's only one.
It's only one that... Yeah, what happened to the other two? Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Maybe they killed them. Maybe, who knows? I don't know. But, okay, this is the interesting thing. So I didn't even think about this at first. They're just driving along, right? Just chilling, driving. Dude fires an arrow, starts screaming. They immediately open fire, right? Only after all of this, and they've had time to wonder what's going on, does Diablo show up and they get attacked. From that point forward, if a pin...
This whole time they've been driving.
Yeah. From that point forward, if a pin drops on the sand, Diablos is literally already there. It's like, it's hilarious. But anyway, so the Diablo shows up, just wrecks their shit.
Yeah, this is the first time Milla Jovovich's character gets tumbled multiple times in a vehicle.
Oh,
let's keep that count going.
Yeah, she's standing. She's standing up. Standing.
She's
out
in the
hood,
gunner position.
In the gunner position. Without any warning, Diablos just rolls this vehicle like 20-something times. It just goes flying. Multiple people, mind you, at this point had some appendage sticking out of a window. Half of the Joe is just sticking out of the roof. and nobody suffers any meaningful injuries whatsoever.
Yeah, in all honestly, this is count number 1 that they should have been peanut butter.
And so that fight goes on, and
Of course, they're not doing any damage to this thing.
none whatsoever. Mr. Bowman is just kind of chilling out. I think he fires like an arrow, one explodey arrow at him, I think.
Yeah, to like distract him or something. We're unclear of his intentions at this point, but we know he's at least trying to help.
Yeah. And then the Diablos knocks another vehicle, the other vehicle just sideways, and then that guy decides to obey the laws of physics and just gets obliterated. Just paints the rock that he smacks into.
Yeah.
And as we're going to demonstrate later on in this description, this movie just gets out of nowhere like violent. like just
yeah.
crazy. Like, I have nothing against violence, man. It's not like it's the most goriest thing you're ever going to see. In fact, it's not really, I would say it's not gory at all. Everything kind of happens either off screen or obstructed.
Yeah, it goes from like Marvel movie level violence of like choreographed fight scene to like sweet Jesus, we're watching Godzilla
like
level of violence.
No, like PG-13, but like a hard PG-13 like thriller viollike people.
Okay, yeah, fair.
It's not just, oh no, Dennis. No, Dennis is fucking dead. Like, without question, Dennis is fucking dead. But like, anyway, so they go into a cave, and then you run into the spider creatures, which is like the one of 3 different creatures that you see. And I mean, fair enough budget and whatnot. You're trying to keep it, maybe not go, well, no, 4. Yeah. Anyway, nope. Not focusing on that.
But yeah, okay. They're in spiders.
The Joe
like, they're shooting these. They're shooting these spiders.
Yeah, the Joe immediately gets stabbed in the back and is just knocked out. We assume maybe dead. Who knows? The spider thing picks her up and just right in the back. Just
okay, real quick though. They make a point of saying she has no pulse. She's not breathing. They do CPR. So we assume she's at least in some part dead. Because she has no pulse. Well, that's what I'm saying is like, she has no pulse. She's not breathing. You know, who knows what's happened to her. So they immediately abandon her. And hilarity ensues. As they're going along, they're trying to fight these things. Why this happens to this dude and not Milla Jovovich, I don't know. But dude gets picked up, and one of these spiders, instead of hugging onto him and stinging him, like happened to Amelia, the Joe. He just gets straight up bitten in half.
Dude, just literally. Which is a payoff for a line that was said earlier, where right when the storm shows up, dude ties his dog tags to his boot, and so there's a whole thing there later, like immediately after. This situation.
Like in case my head gets blown off.
Yeah, he says, in case my head gets blown off, I want him to be able to identify my body. And then this thing like webs him, which none of the other creatures ever do. Just webs this dude, picks him up, gives him a nice little bear hug, and then just chomp. Just at the shoulders, just dead, gone, bye.
And this is part number 2 where the Joe should have been thoroughly peanut buttered and did not happen, because as they're running away and as dude gets chomped in half, there's a swarm of them that's chasing them. Not a single one of these 8-legged motherfuckers step on her.
No, none of them step on her. All of them pass by. One of them literally stops, looks at her for a second, and then walks off, and they just move.
And then keeps going, yeah.
She wakes up. Another one walks up to her and does like a mafioso, like henchman thing where it just kind of looks at her and is like... and then stabs her again. So she's incapacitated again. Then she wakes up in a smash cut that actually caught me off guard. She wakes up in this like sack thing where like all their food is being stored, all the things that they've just recently, stung, and then take it back to their lair.
Yeah. Now let's go there for a minute. She wakes up in this pod, right?
Mm-hmm.
Falls out of it after like tearing herself out of. Why did they kill every other thing in the pod but her?
Yeah,
Because she goes up to, of course, dude bitten in half. You see his dog tags dangling upside down off his boots.
the other chick
The other chick that was in there, the driver, she's like
just
stone cold dead, and she makes a
Already
point
dead.
of like touching her hand, and like her hand is like necrotic, you know, because she's been like dead and half dissolved. And is like they're all just completely dead.
except for that
Eh,
last guy.
I'm getting to that.
We're gonna
I'm
call him
getting
Jim.
to that. But they didn't kill her for some reason. So
Yeah.
she starts wandering along. She finds a med kit. Do you want to know what is in this med kit? This is supposed to be a military IFAK butt pack. Now, I'm not going to get into what actually goes into an IFAK pack that's, you know, normally worn either on the side or on the mid back. But it's a complicated list of trauma saving devices. What does she pull out of this med pack? But a can of oxygen that, I shit you not, just looks like a can of hairspray. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
2 flares and a ring of probably about 6 or 8 .556 rounds.
Yeah. Which is hilarious.
Which is hilarious because this is supposed to be a fucking med pack.
Well, not just that, but that's also like the anti-spider in a tunnel pack.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So she takes this med pack, goes along, rounds a corner, sees dude is still alive. Oh God, I'm hurting. My chest hurts. I can't feel my arm. Okay, let's get you out of here.
We're gonna call him Jim.
We're gonna call him Jim because fuck, trying to remember the character names. No one cares.
Yeah.
We're walking along. My chest. Just a little further. Let's military it up because that's totally a thing, and keep pushing forward.
Well, it kind of is.
It's not. Like there's a difference between, you know, keep pushing forward and hey, I'm injured. Let's stop and treat these injuries. Finally, they do that, and rips his shirt open. And what we think initially is going to be like a full-on rip-off of the chest burster scene from the original Aliens movie turns out to be much, much worse.
Yeah,
This is one of the truly, truly terrible parts of this movie that actually made me flinch. David, do you want to describe it or do you want me to? Because I don't know if I can eloquently enough without bleh.
Yeah, this is a little bit of an overdone thing here. What it is there's just egg sacs just on his side. There's just like, apparently they don't like embed the baby spiders, like they don't make you ingest them. They don't live inside of you. They just like have just injected them in the skin layer, just like a couple epidermal layers down.
Yeah, they're just under your skin.
Yeah, and so there's like a whole like bunch of spider eggs just sitting there, just chilling in it, like right above his rib cage. And right as we see these things, they start popping and the spiders start coming out. And so he just gets covered with these tiny baby spiders. And then so in true, you know, Monster Hunter fashion, because monster's in the title, they cover his body, but that isn't what kills him, because this whole time these, you know, wild, rabid spider creatures have been stalking them.
Yeah, apparently they've been kept at bay this whole time by this single lone flare she's been holding.
Yeah.
Well, it goes out. His ass gets drug away and eaten, assumedly.
No, not assumedly. The thing
he did get torn completely apart. I remember that now.
It grabs him, walks up onto the ceiling, and then a bunch of other, like, adolescent spiders just hop up like, ooh, me, and just rip him out of this thing's jaws, and you just hear like breaking and tearing. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, oh, we got ourselves a nice little like PG thriller movie, you know, make sure you bring your parents, it could get a little intense. No, dude gets ripped to fucking shreds. It just abruptly out of nowhere, it just gets terrible for him. And then so she takes off, starts running, thing grabs her foot,
breaks her foot.
Yeah, maybe
because they make it a point No. They make it a point in this movie to do like the quintessential like leg breaking Foley noise of like.
Oh
like,
yeah. It sounds like
someone snapped a chicken bone next to a microphone sound.
Yeah.
That kind of noise. So you're led to believe, okay, she's at least like broken her ankle or something.
And then
we're gonna tell this part, and then we're gonna fast forward a little bit because there's some existentialism that's completely irrelevant to this movie.
But anyway, so
she gets to the top, right?
Yeah.
And
no.
she pulls.
Dude.
Oh, what?
What
What are we missing?
Top? What are you about?
Right, or like immediately after she breaks, like quote unquote, breaks her leg.
I thought you were about to skip over the best part about the med pack.
No. I'm getting to that. So she breaks her leg, and she gets to the top, and how did she set them on fire initially? Did she just throw the flare at them?
No, that's what I'm saying. She takes the can out, the can of just air.
That's right. And then she has a can of oxygen and sprays it onto these things.
Yeah. So she's
through the flare.
So she's got the flare. She's got the can. She starts spraying that sucker and just turns it into a flamethrower.
Which isn't how that works at all.
Yeah.
And number one, this can of oxygen has like I said, like a hairspray sprayer. Like it is like an Axe can that's just full of liquid oxygen.
So she's escaping through this tunnel that's leading to the surface, and the thing is like just clawing through, and it's like climbing up. It grabs her right as she's about to escape, starts pulling her down. So she pulls out the secret ingredient to the anti-spider tunnel pack, and she pulls out the
6 bullets.
Yeah, well, no, it's more like 8 to 10, and then
just is a little ring of belted bullets,
and then just tosses
which 5.56 doesn't come belted, by the way.
Yeah, and just tosses it neatly onto this thing's head while it's engulfed in flames, which then sets off the ammunition and just starts firing wildly in this small little tunnel.
Can we talk about the fact that it stayed on the spider's head even though the damn thing was thrashing in this tunnel?
Yeah, while it was thrashing in the tunnel on fire, pulling her down. It never knocks the bullets off its head. The bullets never fall off the head once the bullets start firing. And miraculously, she is untouched through this whole altercation, and she gets out of the tunnel. And so she starts, snapping and being an actual human, and freaks out thinking there's spiders on her, and she's just kind of rocking back and forth. And so she starts exploring the area around her, and this is where I was talking about the Diablos. She takes what is it, a rock?
Yeah, she's auspiciously, which we assume it's the dude we're about to meet, the one we saw earlier with the bow and arrow. There's just a neatly stacked little thing of rocks there, and so she takes one and just gently tosses it, and it just goes piff, onto the ground, right onto the sand.
And an immediate reaction, Diablos was literally right
blows
there.
Out of the sand, looks at her where she is, and she's ducked out of the way so it doesn't see her.
Yeah.
Well, then she goes back to have more existential breakdown and realizes, oh, hey, something's wrong with my leg. Now, I don't know who here has played the home game, but as dorky as it is for most action movies to do it, to where, oh, I have an injury, rip the bottom of my shirt or rip my sleeve off or whatever, and then tie up the wound, and then it's good enough to continue on with the movie. As cliche and corny as that is, it's kind of an accepted thing of okay, it's an action movie, you dress the wound. Not in this movie, honey. Not in this movie. How does she dress her wound on her leg? But by taking her knife and pulling out the top of one of her spare bullets, the actual projectile, right? Sprinkles the gunpowder onto her assumedly broken ankle, but I'm going to go ahead and say that it's probably not broken, but I don't know what they added that breaking noise in there for, but she sprinkles this black powder onto this open wound and lights it on fire with just random flint and steel she picked up off the ground. Where she found it, I don't know.
Yeah. But
and then she takes her knife and then straps it around her ankle, and suddenly she's better.
Yeah, she just starts walking and is just chilling. Now we're gonna speed run through these next few parts here and just name a couple of the really good ones because we've got to get to the end of the movie. But so she then runs into Mr. Bowman, who, as we talked about earlier, was flagging down this group of armed, soldiers driving in vehicles. Like, hey, come over here. You're in danger. You don't need to be doing what you're doing. And so now that there's one person in this group of people left that he was trying to flag down and help, he then immediately assaults her, just starts like full on just kung fu, just beating the shit out of her. And so they're fighting back and forth. And, because he lives in a world filled with actual literal monsters and every day is a scrape to survive, he eventually takes her out. So he's got her tied up in this little cave thing that he chills in because wait a minute, didn't they attack at daytime?
No. Okay. I'm gonna speed run this a little bit here, and you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. They spend some time attacking each other, they trade back and forth, whatever. She gets knocked out, takes back to this lair. We find out later that he's trapped on one side by the spiders at night, and on the other side by the Diablos in the sand. So he's stuck in this little place, surviving on nothing but cave dripping water and moss, right? So he goes out to assumedly collect supplies, comes back. She knocks him out because she's gotten free. They trade places, blah, blah, blah. More scrapping. They fight. They eventually come to terms with, hey, during this scrap, she saves his ass from the spiders because he almost fell down a hole. She gives him chocolate, which was the weirdest exchange ever.
Yeah.
Like,
just
for some reason,
out like a 5-year-old, like, give me more chocolate. Give me more chocolate.
Tangent here is like, I don't know if it's a racism thing or if it's just a poor writing thing.
It's just
or
a
if
poor
it's
writing thing, honestly.
Yeah, people who don't know how to write, like, non-English speaking characters because the only language they know is English. But every time they make the character not speak English, every time they find common ground with the English speaking character, they suddenly make him like a 5-year-old.
Yeah, it's just
like he loses all intelligence and goes straight into Ooga Booga back to monkey.
But
it's like he eats the chocolate.
Yeah.
They're friendly now. They go back. She tries to convince them to get the supplies from the Humvee. He says no, too dangerous, blah, blah, blah. They go back, make peace in the cave, gather their strength, go back to this wreckage that's nearby, collect some supplies. There's a montage of training, which leads me to believe they've been here for like a month now.
It's been like maybe 3 days.
It's been like 3 days, but they make it seem like she's been here for a month and been training with this dude. So she gets her whole hunter outfit kind of thing, and they get all prepared and convinces her to be bait. Now, why is she bait, David?
Oh, okay. I was actually going to stop you a second ago. When he first, like, I'm going to say captures her, because that's what he does. When he first captures her, that night, it shows that all the spider things just come bursting out of the tunnels, right? They just all come out because now it's their time to shine. So they come literally tear-assing through these tunnels, bursting them open, come out in droves, and are just scouring the area, just looking for food, looking for whatever they need. Well, she's going to be bait. So as the sun's coming down, she stands dead center of the tunnels, literally right in the middle of their home, and is just singing a jaunty little tune, just singing along and doodly-doo. And then she like hears some rumbling. She stops singing. One of them just bursts out like 2 feet from her, and she just starts running wildly.
Okay, one bursts out.
A single spider comes out to attack her after she's been singing this song. For no reason, the whole group comes flooding out of the tunnel because it's night now. And now that they actually have someone to attack right there in the middle of their home, just one little spider comes out and is like, hey, come here, I want to give you a hug. So she runs off. And dude, in the first action sequence that is actually pretty cool, just comes leaping off of one of the rocks as it comes by.
Yeah. If you've ever played the Monster Hunter games,
and he's got a big
leaping
heavy sword.
off, the big heavy sword leaping off the cliff, slamming it into the monster and gives extra damage, I would assume.
Yeah, cleaves this thing. It cleaves its head in half, just in two, just splits its head open, and then chops its stinger off. Because the plan is we're just gonna use the poison of these spiders. Oh, and by the way, just whenever it suits the story, they either can or cannot understand what each other are saying. And I don't mean just like, oh, okay, they just figure it out here and then don't there. Like literally, they'll just exchange words, and then one of them will go, huh, what? And then they'll like do hand signs, and then everybody gets it. And then every now and then she'll just be like, oh, we're gonna poison them. And then dude is like, yeah. And then they just understand each other randomly.
It's so, because it's so random. Like half of his language is her full language. So
But
it's
not
like,
even that, honestly.
well, it's like at some points, like they understand family and house and poison, and like they understand these common words, but not enough to actually have conversation.
Yeah.
And it only ever works when the plot sees fit.
So anyway, skipping forward, they head out and they're gonna attack the Rathalos. Or not the Rathalos, they're gonna attack the Diablos. And the fight ensues and it's going on. They land the hit on the Rathalos with the poison. And they think it's all good. And then it's like, nope, I'm just going to shake this shit off, and starts taking after them again.
Okay.
Dude buries his sword in its forehead.
Yeah, and he takes off as bait this time. Right?
No, he gets knocked out at that point. I think
I know.
You're thinking a bit ahead.
He runs off as bait. He gets knocked out. And one of the dumbest moments I think I've ever seen. This part of the supplies she wanted to grab
out of their vehicles, because that's where they're heading to, is her old vehicle.
Right. Was a small with iron sights.
Yeah. Be more specific.
That's what I'm getting into. Now, a small with iron sights, it's nothing more than just a recoilless rifle, which is just a big, giant, basic handgun, really. You extend the back, it's got a charge in the back and a projectile, usually filled with explosive. Now, you aim this thing by flipping up these two iron sights. Now, when you flip them up, the back has a little peephole that you look through, and then the front has a little bar that goes up and down to adjust it.
Which is for distance.
Now, when you look through this, it's literally like looking through, like, honestly, it's similar to the sights of like an old Civil War rifle. Or it's very basic. It's very rudimentary.
As far as technology, it's the equivalent of looking through your hands and pretending they're binoculars.
Yeah, it's accurate, but only as accurate as like a rocket launcher can be. Well, the camera and whoever did this editing is a masterful moron, because they edit this to, in a split second, look like it's looking through her eyes.
Yeah, like she's looking
and
through the sight.
apparently, like she's looking through the sights of this rocket launcher. Apparently, she's a goddamn Terminator, because as soon as she does, she has a full heads-up display with a lock-on indicator
system.
Like she's on
like
looking through some 21st century javelin missile. But she's in this vehicle. She pokes out to do this ridiculous thing, right?
Yeah.
and nails this thing, pisses it off. It comes barreling at her. This is time number 2 where she's inside a vehicle and should be turned to peanut butter because it slams into this wreckage of the Humvee and she goes tumbling off.
Comes out not a scratch on her. I think that's actually before she fires the rocket.
Well, whatever. Before or after doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is the second time she's been in a vehicle and should have been turned to peanut butter because it rolled several times.
Yeah.
But long story short, she ends up killing this thing apparently.
Well, no. You got to be specific there before we run off here. On the wrist,
how does she kill it?
The hunters, the monster hunters, have this like wrist-mounted grappling hook that they can use to like grab on and like climb up mountains and latch on to the big creatures. And apparently,
dude had previously buried the sword in this thing's head.
Yeah, so the head is sticking out of its forehead, and now to be fair, she did hit 3 cans with this wrist-mounted thing, by the way. So that makes perfect sense because now that this giant creature's barreling towards her, she's able to accurately hit it with the grappling hook and then just get pulled up perfectly onto this thing's head like she's just some pro, and then buries the sword deeper and deeper into its head until she finally kills it. And then she heads off. They're heading back to
he's still unconscious. She takes a piece of its hide or like a shell carapace thing.
Yeah.
And they're going through the desert. She saves his ass because he's apparently got a collapsed lung, and now she actually has a real med kit.
Yeah, and saves him. And so they're heading off, and they find this oasis, and they're just kind of chilling there for a second, and trying to just survive on their way to the big scary pillar. And then they get attacked by this creature. And you don't know exactly what it is at first, but then you find out it's a Rathalos. Well, there's this like herd of creatures, the herbivores, that get scared and are sent off into a stampede. They run them off to like the edge of a cliff. Ron Perlman shows up in his best Sabretooth X-Men cosplay that he possibly can. And
what did I say? It looks like he stole the outfit from a were-tiger.
Yeah, from a were-tiger. And then he sets his weapon on fire. She sets her weapons on fire, and they proceed to traffic guard these animals.
Now, these are also magic fire weapons. This isn't like they dunk them in fuel and light them on fire. It's like if you play Monster Hunter, like they have these attributes. So they're doing their fire sword dance thing so they don't get trampled.
Yeah, which is literally for one of the 2 people who are actually in trouble. Like they do this whole thing where they're literally just spinning their weapons around wildly in just like slow motion and all this stuff.
I would have loved to have seen that green screen.
Yeah, and then so they get saved, and so the chick's standing there and she's like, thank you. The Joe's trying to communicate, and Ron Perlman goes, what does he say?
He's like, he turns to her, looks at him like dead in the eyes, and she's like, thank you, you know, like every American does. He goes, don't thank me yet. And then just decks her straight in the nose and knocks her the fuck out.
Punches her square in the face. Oh, it's so great.
Just ding, rings her bell, and then she wakes up.
Yeah.
Chained up.
Let's do this pretty quickly because this part isn't too important. She wakes up in the cage, handcuffed and everything, and all the people that you had just seen are like watching her. And Mr. Bowman, she's like, dude, what the fuck? I'm in these chains, and he's like sad and walks off. So she escapes through the hatch that's underneath her freaking cage, and that's where you see the first Palico, which is probably one of the best parts of the movie. He looks
this is honestly the best part of the movie is when you see the Palico.
Yeah, so he's down there and he's cooking food and everything directly under her cell, which the hatch doesn't make any sense. So she escapes, right? And the Palico doesn't give a shit. He's just down there cooking, the best damn meal he possibly can, being the best part of the whole movie. And then so she's walking around in handcuffs.
His back must hurt from carrying this movie.
Yeah. So she's walking around in handcuffs, and then Mr. Bowman is like, hey, don't disrupt him. He's cooking food. And then he just takes her to Perlman, who's like, yeah, my bad, and then uncuffs her. And that's literally it. Nothing else happens in terms of like what's going on. So then you find out that
long story short, they have to kill this thing.
Yeah, there was other
so
people who
she can
showed
go
up.
back.
He can understand English because they've already been visited by other people from her world before, and so now they got to go to the big scary pillar that's guarded by a Rathalos, which is this big, badass, fire-breathing dragon thing.
It's a dragon wyvern thing, but they make it a point to say it can only be killed basically from the inside right before it breathes fire.
Right before it breathes fire, that's where it's the weakest.
Well, an awesome, actually pretty awesome fight scene happens, right? Or at least it starts to happen. She gets attacked by this thing and jumps off a cliff. Well, she accidentally jumps off a cliff through a portal and lands back in her own fucking time.
Yeah.
And of course, this is what we talked about earlier. Soldiers show up and are like, oh, she's, transported back. We have a survivor, blah, blah, blah. Where's the rest of your team? So on and so forth.
Never says anything. Because she's
never
apparently
says
got
anything.
teleportation sickness. And the whole scene has this odd, kind of flavor over it that's like something weird's going on. Something bad's going on.
Yeah. It's got this weird mixture between, these soldiers have no fucking clue what's going on. They just randomly found their captain or whatever that just popped out of nowhere, and she's inconspicuously got a different change of clothes.
Yeah, it's just decked out.
But there's
in
also
Mark
this
armor.
air of they know exactly what's going on, and they know exactly what's about to happen.
Yeah, but nothing
But
is
somehow
said.
but nothing is said.
Nothing is
We
said.
have no idea. We really have no idea.
Yeah. And then,
But they have airships, the Pelicans or whatever fucking things, the VTOLs. They've got tanks, they've got Humvees and buggies, and they got a radar plane flying above. So
yeah,
they must be prepared or whatever you think. And then it's like, oh well, she's getting transported back. Well, what? This movie can't end that way. Well, you're right, because the damn Rathalos comes through a portal mid-flight
and just wrecks shop.
chomps the front of her thing off.
Now that
she's flying in.
Now that was a pretty cool action scene when he's taking out all the aircraft and then he's destroying all the vehicles. In which, when he's up against people, he just spews a little bit of fire and goes rawr a couple times. But then as soon as he sees this fleet of armed forces, he just stops. He just starts dropping bombs, just left and right, just fire breathing here, fire breathing there.
And can I talk about a really nice piece of accuracy? If you've ever seen a predatory bird either fight and defend its territory to another predatory bird, or it's hunting a non-predatory bird for food, how the Rathalos attacked the radar plane is, spot on what an apex flying predator would do. It comes from above, grabs onto its wings, and then tears its wings off.
Yeah.
That is exactly how actual apex flying predators would attack another flying creature.
Yeah, and this leads to a sequence which is the 15th time that she will survive
she
impending doom.
Has a plane crash. Because the front of her fucking plane thing is missing, right?
Yeah.
This is number 3, and then immediately number 4, after the Rathalos tears the wings off of it, this fucking plane crashes in front of her after she staggers out of the third wreckage, and then throws her into the wreckage again for the 4th time.
Yeah, but you're also forgetting the string of luck that led to her escaping the spider tunnels unharmed.
I'm just counting the time she's been in a modern vehicle and should have been peanut butter because she wasn't strapped down and went tumbling around the inside. Just that alone has happened 4 times now in this movie.
Yeah. So anyway, she tussles with the Rathalos, who has just decided to stop, laying waste to everything around him, and just fights her head on, apparently. Tussles with her. She thinks she defeats it. Mr. Bowman shows up and helps finish the deal.
Well, she thinks she defeats it. It gets back up, starts to bite her. All of a sudden, he explodes again. It's like, oh, Bowman guy,
Yeah.
whatever.
Bowman. And then Ron Perlman comes through, and he's like, hey, I can't let my creatures attack your world. That's just not cool. So they turn around, and the big ass, dark clouds start coming in. And every time those clouds are like overcasting everything that's going on, it turns into the worst like CG you can possibly imagine.
It's like the worst CG. And can we talk about another thing too? Is it never gradually happens in the movie? It's either like 20 miles away or it's right on top of them.
Yeah, but anyway,
there's never transitional period. It's either like here it comes or there it is.
It just exists in like 3 states. It's not. It might. It is. And then
yes.
And then just the ending sequence of the movie is like they're
the 3 of them going off. I'll let you do it.
Yeah, because it says that, and I don't know the exact name of this creature. I'd have to look it up. But it says before they go to the big scary pillar that it's guarded by a Rathalos. Period. That's it. It's guarded by a Rathalos, and that's like the worst thing we're going to deal with.
It was not the same thing that they just fought.
It wasn't the same thing that they just fought. So it comes off of the pillar, comes out of the portal, and it's this other gnarly looking thing with like armor on its face and shit like that. And they literally end this movie with the stereotypical like slow-mo action shit's about to get real scene where each of them are like barreling forward with their like specially elemental imbued weapon. They come flying in the air, heading straight for this thing that you've never seen before. Monster Hunter.
Credits. Yeah, credits.
And credits roll. And it's just like, because so what? Does she end up going to that world and staying with them? Do they handle the creature? Do they shut down the portal?
It's a purposeful cliffhanger. It has to be.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that's the most genius part of this movie because they don't actually resolve anything.
Yeah.
They don't resolve anything.
It's literally a movie of confounded conflict, the main character being inexplicably awful but still surviving. And then they ended on a gratuitous action shot of a continuing storyline.
Yeah, it literally is just more of what's been going on, and that's how the movie...
Is this a good movie? No. Is this a fun movie? Fuck yes.
It can't. It depends. It depends on what you're looking for and what what you're expecting going into it.
If you're a Monster Hunter fan, stay away from this movie.
Unless you just absolutely don't give a shit. And then like we said, the not the set pieces, but like the costume work and the CGI on the creatures is actually pretty impressive. You can tell that there was a lot of work that went into some of this movie.
If you're a Monster Hunter fan, you'll appreciate the attention to detail, but you'll hate the plot.
And oh my god. I'm glad
I'm glad I watched it.
I'm glad my expectations were lowered so heavily before watching this movie because it was honestly oddly entertaining. It's absolutely a so bad it's good.
I'll put it this way. It's going to be a great movie for my dad to watch because he's into monster films. He does not care about lore and backstory and stuff like that. And he's a fan of big budget action scenes. If you're into those things, if you're just a casual movie watcher, if you like seeing Milla Jovovich in insane situations dealing with unbelievable odds, you're golden. Yeah. If you like the Resident Evil movies, you'll like this movie.
Probably.
If you liked, I don't know, I'm going to go as far as to say, if you were a fan of the 2001 Godzilla movie, you'll like this movie.
Okay, so real quick, I want to say, like, this is a new format we're kind of trying here, and what we're going to do with it is we talked about at the beginning of this podcast how first of all, thank you for watching this far. If you've made it this far, we really appreciate that.
Yeah,
But,
we apologize for being disjointed movie reviewers.
We actually recorded that whole session. And we haven't really decided yet how exactly we want to move through with this, because like I said, this is completely new for us, and we're just figuring it out as we go along. But our intention is to record that whole process and upload it to Patreon. That would be on my Patreon. That would be where the recorded session is. This podcast is always going to be free. It's always going to be on YouTube, and that's
the podcast will always be free. But if you want to have special behind the scenes access, and our live commentary to things that we watch and do,
and also support the channel, that's really important.
Also support the channel, please visit our Patreon. I'm sure you have a link to it on your YouTube channel, correct?
Yes, I do have a link to it. I'll actually put a link to it in this video as well. This podcast, when it's uploaded to YouTube, I'll put a link to it in the description. And
as time goes on, I'm sure there will be other exclusive content and possible meet and greets after the pandemic is over.
But something I'm trying to figure out right now is, I have the audio for this because that's how I intended it to be. It was just like audio. You could potentially watch the movie along with it. But if it would be better to like have the movie with it, or to just cut it up if there wasn't an interest in watching the whole thing, that's something I actually want to know. I want to know what others would like to see from it as we evolve and move forward. And also, if you have any suggestions for movies that you think would be awesome to review and have us do all this content for,
please, there's
free.
No movie bad enough that we won't watch.
Feel free to leave requests in the comments, and I'm almost certain we're gonna do it, especially if it's bad. Especially if it's a bad. Oh, I love
if it's a bad movie that's good, or a good movie that's bad, we'll watch it.
I love ripping on stuff like that. It's so great. So that content is going to go up to Patreon.
Yes, we will do commentary live on Patreon. Our podcast will always be free on YouTube.
Yes.
Consider subscribing for more content like this, or don't if you don't like it. We don't care. But thank you for watching us. Thank you for joining us. We hope you've had a good time. David, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Come back soon. We miss you.
We love you.
Peace.